strangest king in all of Ireland was King Lowry Linchuk. Now, I'll tell you why he was strange in a moment. His parents, they were the king and queen when he was born. He was a baby. And ever since he was a baby, the king and queen had to keep the most terrible secret. Because when baby Lowry was born, he was born with 2 horses' ears on either side of his head. And they just popped up like 2 yew trees. And the parents were horrified when they saw their baby. And they vowed that no one should ever find out about the 2 horses' ears, because Lowry would be the king. He would be their heir when they died. And so the queen made a special cap that fitted very tightly and kept the ears under control and hidden, plastered to the side of his head. And Lowry could never have a nanny or a nursemaid or any kind of servant look after him. The parents had to look after his every need, including his haircuts. Well, eventually Lowry became a man. And by this time, the king and queen were old and feeble, and they could no longer, well, actually they no longer needed to look after him, but they needed someone to do his haircuts. So anyway, the parents could no longer do this. So Lowry thought about it and thought about it. And anyway, he was, by this time, crowned king, and he would wear a scarf that wrapped around his head, and his ears would be held in place, and there would be some hair showing, but then the crown would go on top. And that was always well, but you know, kings can't have really long hair, so he needed a barber every 2 or 3 months. Well, King Lowry was on the whole a good king, but every time he had his hair cut, he ordered one terrible deed to be performed. I think you know what's coming. The barber would be called to come to the castle to cut the king's hair. And he would be ushered into the king's chamber, all the curtains would be closed, the haircut would be done, and then the barber would never be seen again. Yes, he was executed. So pretty soon, nobody wanted to be a barber. And the barbers that were, they went into hiding, and people had to come in the dark of night for haircuts. So it was getting increasingly difficult to find a barber. But he did find one, and that barber was summoned to come on a certain day. And this barber supported his widowed mother with his hair cutting. And when the mother found out that he had been called to the castle, she was like, no, my son, you mustn't go. You can't go because you're going to be executed. And then what is going to become of me? Well, I will surely die too. And then the young man said, well, there's nothing I can do, mother. I have to go. I've been called. Well, then I'm coming with you, and I shall beseech the king on your behalf. And so there was no talking her out of it. They made, on the appointed day, they went to the castle, and the mother held on so tightly to her son that the guards could not pry her loose. And so they were both ushered to the king. And the king was like, well, and who are you? To the mother. And she said, I am his mother. I am the barber's mother, and I am a widow. And if you execute my son, well, I shall surely die too, because he looks after me with his barbering. He looks after my every need. I will die too. So please, please, please don't execute him. And the king was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And he was actually, I said he was on the whole a good man, and he was kind of moved by this, but he was still wavering. But then the mother said, whatever it is, whatever secret it is, we'll keep it. We won't tell anyone. So please, please, don't have my son executed. All right, so finally the king agreed and said, all right, well, your son can't even tell you the secret, because if my secret gets out, then you shall both be executed. And they promised that they would keep this secret. And so the mother was taken away, and the barber and the king went into his chambers, and all the curtains were closed, and the king took off his crown, and he slowly unwound the scarf, and boom, dropped the ears. Two yew trees. I love that description. And the barber, he almost burst out laughing, but managed to control himself, got out his scissors and performed the haircut. And the king thanked him and wrapped up the ears and put the crown back on, and was very pleased with his haircut, and said, well, remember, you must not tell anyone this secret, or you and your mother shall both be executed. So they went off, and the son was resolute. He would not tell this secret. He could keep a secret. I mean, it's a pretty interesting situation that he had discovered, but he wouldn't tell anyone. I mean, life was more important than telling other people about this, what he had discovered. So things got kind of interesting, because the next day he opened the barber shop, and there were quite a few people outside, men, women, children, because they wanted to see whether he was still alive, and he was. And they were all like, oh, you're still here. Whoa, what happened? You must tell us. Come on, tell us. We don't tell anyone. No, there's nothing to tell, nothing to tell. Come, there's something going on. You must tell us. And anyway, every day, there were more and more people came to get their hair cut. He could barely keep up. I mean, it was great to be making this money, but it was getting kind of stressful. I mean, even men who maybe only had 2 or 3 hairs were coming for haircuts. And, everyone wanted to find out what had happened. Well, then it was just getting really difficult. I mean, imagine if you had to keep a secret when everyone was begging you to tell them. And it was such an interesting story. Like, it would just be, you would just be, it would just be so much fun to tell that story. But no, he mustn't tell it. And then he just got to the point where he just couldn't stand it any longer, keeping the secret. He began to have trouble sleeping. He couldn't eat. And he dreaded opening the door, to let everyone in. So finally, his mother noticed what was happening and said, come on, son, eat, you must eat, you must keep up your strength, but he couldn't, one morning he just couldn't get up. He just locked the door and he just stayed in bed. Days went by and wouldn't eat, and finally his mother thought she must call the doctor. And the doctor came and examined him and said, well, I can't find anything wrong with your son, so is there something bothering him? And the mother's like, yes, you know, the secret. The secret? Yes, the king's secret. Oh, right, of course. Yes, he's been keeping a secret. Well, could he tell you? No, we'll be executed. There must be someone he could tell the secret. He must offload this secret. We can't tell anyone or we'll be executed. And the mother got very emotional. But so the doctor finally said, all right, I know what to do. I'll go and talk to your son. So he went where the son was lying, pale and listless in bed. And he said, listen to me. I'll tell you what you must do. Down by the river where the rushes grow, there's that very large oak tree, the big one. Yes, everyone knew where that was. Well, you must go down there and you must tell your secret to the oak tree. Okay, all right. Then you will feel better. You'll see. And so the young man tossed and turned all night, but finally in the morning he decided, all right, there's nothing, what have I got to lose? So he dragged himself out of bed and weakly made his way down to the oak tree, there were the rushes blowing in the wind, and there was the oak tree. So he went right up to the oak tree, looked around, blowing his horn. King Lowry Linchuck has horse's ears. And it felt so good. He repeated it. King Lowry Linchuck has horse's ears. Oh, what a relief. As he walked his way shakily back up the riverbank, the rushes blowing, he was sure he heard a voice. Voices. King Lowry Linchuck has horse's ears. I'm sure it was just the wind blowing that he heard. Anyway, he came home. Good night's sleep. He ate a good meal. And he opened the door to the barber shop the next day. And people were surprised, but soon they began coming again, wanting to know the secret. But he didn't tell, and he felt good about it. Well, soon it was time to celebrate the harvest, and King Lowry Linchuck called a banquet. He wanted a banquet where everyone in the village would come. And so all the preparations were made, and there was going to be wonderful food, and there was going to be entertainment from his harpist. And the day came, and the harpist got out his harp and was tuning it up, and suddenly noticed it didn't sound right. And he looked, and there was a crack in the bass, the wooden bass. Oh my goodness, he'd have to hurry, he'd have to build a new one. So he took a saw and he ran down to the riverbank where that large oak tree was. And he sawed off a big branch, brought it back, and hastily made a new bass for his harp. And then rushed off to the banquet. He hardly had time didn't have time to practice or anything, but he knew it would be good. So the banquet was wonderful, and everyone ate and drank, and the evening was finished, and it was time for the entertainment. And so the harpist came to the front of the banquet hall and began to strum on his harp. But to his horror, instead of music coming out of the harp, why, these words rang out around the banquet hall. King Lowry Linchuck has horse's ears. King Lowry Linchuck has horse's ears. And he stopped the strings from vibrating and sat in horror. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in the hall, there was a muffled giggle. And another one over there. And another one. Giggles. And finally guffaws and laughter. And the king, some people looked at the king in horror. What would he do? He was pale. And then he turned red. And then he started to laugh. Oh my goodness. He couldn't help it. It was funny. He had horse's ears. So he removed the crown and he unwrapped the scarf and up popped the horse's ears. And never before or since was heard such laughter in an Irish banqueting hall. And all the barbers breathed a sigh of relief. And from that day forward, there was never another execution in Ireland.